I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's.
Did the CIA write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
As humans busied themselves about the various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied.
Dr. Loeb, what percentage chance do you give it that you have indeed uncovered extraterrestrial or non-human technology?
With infinite complacence, people went about their affairs, yet across an immense ethereal gulf, intellects vast and unsympathetic threw their plans against us.
All of a sudden, a stick out of nowhere landed right in front of us, and there was no tree, nothing overhead. Something threw it at us.
Yeah.
All Things Unexplained.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.
Hello, all you unexplained ones. Thank you for joining us. We have a super exciting show for tonight. Hi, Tim.
Hello, CJ. How's it going?
Good. What shirt do you have on this evening?
I call it whack-a-mole salad. It's like a Southwestern. I stole that from Robert O'Kane. He has this song, and he sings a lot about Southwestern culture and food and such. And he doesn't call it a guacamole salad. He calls it a whack-a-mole salad.
Whack-a-mole salad. That seems appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, if it's guacamole, let's dive right in, huh?
That's
Tonight, we are going to try and find out why the CIA may have hired remote viewers or psychic spies to find the Ark of the Covenant. And in order to get to our answer, we brought in two experts. Friend of the show and our consultant on all things religious would be Pastor Brent Levy. And we have our other friend, Lyn Buchanan, who is a remote viewer. So these two people together should certainly be able to answer questions about remote viewing and the Ark of the Covenant. One would think, don't you think?
Absolutely. Please post any questions you've got for any of us in the chat. We will definitely get to all your questions, although we may save some of them towards the end.
Yeah. You know what I find really interesting too is that there are a lot of people out there that already have done a deep dive into the Ark of the Covenant and where it might have gone, where it may be, who might be responsible for it. So if you're watching and you're an expert or you've done a ton of research already, post it in the comments, post it in the questions, help us further our chat because we're certain some of you are experts out there already. So without further ado, we're going to take a little commercial break and we'll be back with our special guests. All Things Unexplained is free to watch on YouTube and listen to wherever you get your podcasts. If you would like to support our show, you can visit our YouTube store. Additionally, you can find us on Venmo under All Things Unexplained. Be sure to check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. All proceeds from the sales of Dr. Mounce's books on Amazon and Audible also go straight to our show. Hello, Brent. Hello, Lyn. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much.
Brent, I have to be honest. I was trying so hard not to say Levy that I almost said it, and then I got really nervous.
Look, CJ, you can call me whatever you want. Levy. It's anything.
We are so happy to have you back. Brent is a good friend of ours. He's been on the show before. I mean, you're essentially a regular now.
I mean, I feel like it. I want a t-shirt as cool as Tim's, though.
I know. That is very, very different. So Brent is the pastor of the local church. And even if you are not local, you can still watch his sermons. You can find him on YouTube. It's the local church Pittsburgh, right?
Local church PBO. Yep. If you just search for local church on YouTube, should come up. It's the purple one.
Yes, wonderful. And Lyn, you have quite the history. I'm going to start with you. Tell us a little bit about your history with remote viewing. How did you get that job?
Oh, well, the history of the remote viewing, I was an intelligence agent over in Germany, and an incident happened, which is part of is still mostly classified. And I since childhood, I've had these PK events, psychokinetic events. You've heard of the kids that when they get excited, things fall off shelves and all that. There are a lot of those. I was one of them. And so anyway, there was a program that I had written, a computer program that would tie the intelligence programs, computers of 12 different countries together and get them talking to each other. They're at the field station in Augsburg, Germany. And this other sergeant wanted the job. I got it. And so when the time came, we had generals from 12 different countries sitting in the room waiting. I went to the bathroom to make sure I was, had no wrinkles and hair in place and all this. And when I came back, I gave them a little song and dance explaining everything, and then hit the enter key, and the computer went dead. And of course, there were all those generals that were laughing at me. And I turned around and looked, and the other sergeant was back at the doorway and said, "Gotcha," and turned around and walked off. And so I got flaming angry. And when I did, the entire field station went down. Everything in it. And this caught the attention of General Albert Stubblebine, who was looking for people who had these abilities. He wanted to start a unit that would be able to destroy enemy computers with the end goal of controlling those enemy computers mentally. Their missiles turn around and go back at them or drop into the sea or whatever. And so the word about this got to him. He came out to Augsburg. And if you've ever seen the movie The Men Who Stare at Goats, George played me in the movie. And,
what?
Yeah. And so the general pulled me into the director's office, and he got right up in my face and said, "Did you kill my computers with your mind?" And I was going to lie. I was going to lie about it. I could see my grandchildren still paying for computers. And I said, "Yes, sir, I did." And he said, "Far effing out. I ever got a job for you." And he took me up from there and put me into the remote viewing unit.
Oh my, I have so many questions.
And so he wanted to take me out of the remote viewing unit and start a unit that would control computers. And Congress said, absolutely not. They had been caught in the 60s doing mind control experiments, and they weren't going to do that again. They said, this is like mind control. We're not going to do it. And so there I was in the remote viewing unit. And that's where I stayed the rest of my career. Yeah.
Wow. What year was this?
84.
Okay. Yeah. So we're still talking about very, very new versions of computers.
Oh, yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah.
We had one called a Wang computer, Chinese make. And I always said, what sound does it make when you beat on a piece of junk? Wang, wang, wang. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I have a feeling you guys had some fun in your time there. Okay, direct question out the gate. Lyn Buchanan, do you know where the Ark of the Covenant is?
Yes.
Did we just get it out there? No, we got to do a deep dive first.
Well, okay, let me make the ground shallow for the deep dive.
Okay.
The location of it, it's safe.
It's safe. Okay.
And we had, I don't know if you have a image of the session that was released in that article, but we all did that. We all did that work, and we had dowsers. I did that work and got far more detail than this one did, and the thing is, you said, where is it? Who do you want to know? Do you want Putin to know? Do you want Trump to know? Or,
I mean, maybe you can just tell me privately off air.
Yeah, or do you want Hamas to know? No. And so it's my firm belief that the answer is it's safe. It is safe.
Okay.
And it's real. It does exist.
All right. We have a lot to unpack there. But before we get too far into this conversation, I'm going to come to you, Brent, in just a second. But Tim, tell all of our viewers, I'm like sweating once you said yes. Okay. Tell all of our viewers how we got to this episode, how we got to this show, and why it's so important.
Okay. Well, we got to this episode because, well, first of all, I got a text from Brent, and he texted me this news, which I did know about, but the story went viral, right? That the CIA had declassified a document about how they used a remote viewer who went by remote viewer number 32 to look for the Ark of the Covenant. Now, interestingly, that document came out over 20 years ago. But for some reason, and we've seen this happen a lot lately, it gained viral attention yet again, right? So that document, I'll give a shout out to John Greenwald with the Black Vault. That document was available in the Black Vault 25 years ago from the CIA. But just recently, it picked up traction again, got on the news. Brent saw it and texted me. And this remote viewing session happened in December 1988. And I won't go too much into it right now, but to put it into perspective, December 1988, just to be nostalgic, the top of the charts, we were talking about The Cosby Show, Cheers, Roseanne. One of our biggest inspirations, Unsolved Mysteries. The biggest movies out were Rain Man, Twins, Scrooged, Naked Gun, which, by the way, I loved all those movies. I haven't seen a good movie, I feel like, in 10 years, but yet every movie back then was amazing. The top song out there was Every Rose Has Its Thorn by Guns N' Roses. Some of the fads were Nintendo Entertainment System, slap bracelets, which have come back into vogue again, Garbage Pail Kids, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Brant, you probably had some of those. Two of the best sayings was "gag me with a spoon." I told my son Charlie that. He's like, "What does that mean? Gag me with a spoon?" I didn't want him to take it too literally, so I told him what it meant. And Cowabunga, thanks to the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But in December 1988, sure enough, the CIA used a remote viewer to search for the Ark of the Covenant. And it kind of ties in with a lot of other stuff that's happening right now. We've got the JFK files that have been released, which deals heavily with the CIA, and we may get into that briefly later. We've got another document that's gained viral attention here recently where a remote viewer was used to look at Mars in 1 million BC. And I bet Lynn may have some thoughts on that. So this is how the show came about, and I've always been fascinated by the Ark of the Covenant.
Okay.
CJ, I mean, I grew up loving Raiders of the Lost Ark, right? Indiana Jones, Bullwhip, the hat, the whole thing. And it doesn't get any bigger than the Ark of the Covenant. It literally is the greatest mystery of them all.
So I want to talk to Brent about why. Tell me about the Ark of the Covenant. Why is it so important? Why would people want to look for it for all of these years?
Should we have our little explainer before he gets in?
Oh, yes. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, Brent.
I have the memory of a goldfish, I tell you.
Just a quick little explainer. Only took me several hours to make a 30-second video here. So we're gonna put it up here. A little historical explainer of the Ark of the Covenant. Here we go. Or locked away. The Ark of the Covenant, a sacred relic said to hold the power of God himself. It once stood in Solomon's temple in Jerusalem, said to contain the stone tablets of the 10 Commandments. But when the Babylonians destroyed the temple in 586 BC, the ark vanished. Top theories on where it went: hidden before the invasion, smuggled to Ethiopia, buried beneath the Temple Mount, taken by divine beings, or locked away by secret societies. Some even believe it still exists, protected, concealed, waiting. And recently, the CIA tried to locate the Ark using remote viewers. Is the Ark just a myth or a lost relic of immense power?
Okay, Brent, maybe you can translate that into non-Mississippi speak so we can all understand.
That was so good.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
That's so good. I felt like I was like watching a History Channel show, like come alive right there. Yeah, no. I mean, to talk about why folks want to find it, why it has such sort of mystique and intrigue now, you kind of have to go back to the beginning, and as the video touched on, what it has represented through scripture, through religious history as well. And so it starts in the book of Exodus, which is the second book of the Bible, or the Old Testament for Christians, the Hebrew Bible for our Jewish siblings. And Moses is given instructions, essentially, to have this ark built. And as the video said, the ark, and it's not huge. The dimensions around it were about 2.5 cubits long, which is just under 4 feet or so. 1.5 cubits wide and 1.5 cubits high, and so not terribly large. But inside the ark contained some of the most important things as it pertained to the Israelites' connection with the divine, with Yahweh, with God. And so the stone tablets are, of course, the 10 Commandments that represent the law. Also purported to be in the ark is manna, and so the provision of God to the Israelite people, as well as Aaron's rod representing the priesthood or the leadership. And so all of these things were in the ark, and the ark was intended. The size was important so that it could be portable. For a long time, the Israelite people would journey from place to place, and the ark would go with them. And the ark literally was for them the power and the presence of God. It was the place where God dwelled. And so, and there was a belief that as long as the ark was in their possession, they were protected, they were safe, and because of God's power there with them. And there's gold and there's seraphims. There was a picture that you showed, Tim, that had that on there. Right there, that are winged creatures. The poles are there as well. It was said that the poles were never to be removed so that it could be easily transported from place to place. The thinking was that it was around, 250 pounds or so to carry. So not a light thing by any means, but made of acacia wood as well. I've got some notes here that I'm consulting. The 2 cherubim or seraphim were there, the 4 rings of gold with the poles inserted there, and so that's the significance of it. I think it from what I've read and what I've studied, the real intrigue has come about largely because of the Indiana Jones movie. Really,
Yeah.
that's sort of where it it has become like this pop culture, phenomenon. But there is a belief, a sense that it still does contain that sort of power. People weren't allowed to touch it. If you touch, there's a story in scripture of somebody touching it and perishing and dying. Like, that's how powerful it was. It was led in battle as well. And there's a story of the Israelite people carrying the ark around the city of Jericho, and the walls fall down. Maybe you've heard that story, and it's conquered. And the conquering of that is sorry, I'm looking at the comments here. The conquering of that was attributed to the power and the presence of God in the ark. And so that's sort of why, and Lyn, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It sounds like you have some more experience as well, maybe than I do, but that's why there's such intrigue, is because the thinking is like whoever has it has access to a tremendous amount of power. So I'll pause there. Yeah.
The myth has grown up that the country that owns the Ark of the Covenant can never be beaten in battle. And so this is why it's the thing that seems like every country, every government wants the possession of the Ark of the Covenant. Yeah.
I've heard theories that there's some sort of nuclear power that surrounds it that makes it impossible to touch. Is that something you've heard before, Lyn, or that you can confirm?
Oh yeah, the building of it is it's built like a large capacitor.
Okay.
And the capacitor will build up static electricity, or there may be something inside it that even generates static electricity. And so if somebody touches it, there's that static discharge. Yeah, it could either kill them or scare them to death. Yeah.
So as a novice here, that static discharge, is that something that's coming from just the components that were used to build the Ark of the Covenant, or is it believed that there might be some sort of technology built into it?
Yeah, it's pretty well described in the Bible how it's built, the construction.
Right.
And it is built like a large capacitor.
Okay.
Well, I want to say too, just going back on that idea of power, but there's a pretty famous example of the Israelites entering into battle with the Philistines, and they bring the ark with them, and expecting it to be, their golden ticket to victory, and it doesn't happen, and they suffer tremendous loss.
Yeah.
And I think that raises some questions, about its proper use, and whether there was really how much that battle was justified, and the misuse of that power, perhaps, as well.
So would we say that power is the number one leading factor for people looking for the Ark of the Covenant, or is it a proof of the existence of God?
Well, and yeah, that's definitely, I think, a part of the conversation is that there is a desire for folks to be justified, to discover that, I've been right the whole time, I mean, and we see that not just with the ark, but we see evidence, or we see that yearning, that impulse anytime, like the Shroud of Turin for a while was a big piece of that, if Jesus was really real and the crucifixion really happened, then I am going to be okay. I mean, essentially is what it comes down to. My whole thing is that reduces faith to a triviality. I think we're missing the point. I mean, I'm a preacher, so forgive me. But
faith along that same line. If you have an instrument that everybody believes is the power of God, and you take it into battle with you, you have an entire army who believes they can't lose,
Hmm.
and they're going to fight. They're going to fight differently.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a great point.
So, where do either of you know was the last place that the Ark of the Covenant was mentioned to exist in the Bible?
In
Where
the
was
temple, right?
Yeah, I mean, so do you mean like in what book of the
Where is
Bible?
it?
Or
No, I just mean where was the last
the location?
location that it was mentioned to have been left? That's a very specific
Yeah,
question.
I'm not quite sure. I'd have to look that up, but
Okay. And maybe one of
yeah.
our listeners knows. I'm guessing some have tuned in because they're Ark of the Covenant fans.
Yes, please. If you're an expert, I say often I might be wrong. So
Yeah.
please.
Well, I believe the temple was ransacked, and at that point, it disappeared.
Well, that's the story, right? Is that the Babylonians
Right.
took it. The issue that I've read, though, in my research for today too, was that that there was essentially a manifest, a list of things that the Babylonians had taken, and the Ark wasn't on that list, which raised some questions about whether it had been taken or not.
So, CJ, I did just ask AI about this situation. It says the last clear historical mention of the Ark of the Covenant in the Bible occurs in the book of Jeremiah, specifically Jeremiah 3:16. An interesting 3:16. Everybody knows John 3:16, but here's Jeremiah 3:16. And by the way, is it synchronicity that we're doing this show on Easter week? It feels like it kind of is. And my son's birthday falls on Easter this year.
Good to know, Tim. We'll sing.
Yes.
So he will be looking forward to that. So Jeremiah 3:16, this is from the NIV version. In those days when your numbers have increased greatly in the land, declares the Lord, people will no longer say, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord. It will never enter in their minds or be remembered. It will not be missed, nor will another one be made.
Wow. Will you read it one more time? I feel like I missed an important detail in the middle.
Yeah.
Yes, although there are a couple of other mentions. So Jeremiah 3:16, in those days when your numbers have increased greatly in the land, I assume they're talking about population here.
Yes.
Declares the Lord, people will no longer say, the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord, it will never enter their minds or be remembered. It will not be missed, nor will another one be made. AI says this passage suggests that the Ark would no longer be central to Israel's worship in the future, implying its absence or irrelevance moving forward. And I've heard that too, right? That at some point they got away from these symbols being such an important part of the worship.
Well, it was hidden in the Holy of Holies, and only the high priest, could see it, and so it became basically a non-object for the common person.
Right.
Well, and Christians would say too that Jesus sort of becomes the Ark of the Covenant. So the power, the presence of God, as contained in the Ark of Covenant, is reconstituted in the person of Jesus, essentially. And so the way that many Christians would read that, I think, is that it's not in their mind anymore because of Jesus, if that makes sense.
I have to laugh at this comment from our friends, UFO Busters. And we have so many friends in the chat. Hello to all of you. There's too many names to call everybody out, but I mean, I'll say just a few. Marie, Ursula, I think Jay Justin here, Kimball, UFO Busters, who says they might have it in their shed. You know what? In the Australian outback, I wouldn't doubt anything being out there where our friends,
as long as it's safe, we know
are
it
located.
could be there.
Now, it does say here, the last time the Ark was mentioned being physically handled was 2 Chronicles 35:3. King Hosea commands the Levites to return the Ark to the temple. This would be around 622 BC, which is the last time it's described as being physically handled. But it is mentioned symbolically, interestingly, in Revelations, which is my favorite book of the Bible. ironically, the most apocalyptic book. Then God's temple, then God's temple in heaven was opened, and within his temple was seen the ark of his covenant. And it says this is often interpreted symbolically or as a vision, maybe not a literal reappearance of the ark on earth, but maybe so.
Mhm.
Yeah, I've heard Revelation described as somebody has a dream and then wakes up and writes it down. You know, there are things that aren't necessarily going to make sense in the same way that you might as you're explaining a dream.
Yeah.
We found that in the remote viewing that the subconscious mind uses a lot of symbology, analogies, and so on to get valid information across. And the analysts that used our information, they had to understand that certain things were analogous. And what's behind that? What does it stand for? What is the subconscious mind trying to say?
So do you think that intrigue in the arc sort of faded for a while and then reemerged in the last century, let's say?
Oh yeah, I think it's been sort of a thing of interest all along. There's stories of it being secreted away up in to the mountains of Scotland and in France, and I think probably the Pyrenees in Spain, and there have been all kinds of stories about it all along. The thing is, it's just not going to be answered because it is safely tucked away, and its location is held secret. Yeah, I
So
think we reason.
the CIA got together some remote viewers to see if they could find the Ark of the Covenant. Were you part of this team?
Oh yeah, and I did it.
Okay.
Um,
Why? Why would the
Yeah.
CIA do that?
okay. Do you have the first cover page that you could put up on the screen? That will explain a lot if you have it.
Okay.
Yes, and I looked over that cover page, and I did have a lot of. I did find it really intriguing. I had a lot of
Let me interpret
questions for
that
you about it, and this may be slightly hard to see, but I'm looking at it off screen as well.
It's
I might could
perfect. Oh, I see. Okay, let me just
Oh, sorry.
go down through this if you can show it. There you go. Project number is 0209, and TNG is training. Now it has an asterisk beside it, which means something. And if it were only a training session, it would not have been turned into the CIA. And so I don't know if it was one of those where it was called a training session, but it was actually really for somebody and we just weren't allowed to know it, or if it just happened to get into the wrong box and was sent to the CIA. But the training sessions were all tasked within the unit, not by the CIA. And so anyway, session number is 1. This we did it one time. We didn't get retasking for more details and more details. The date of the session was 5 December 88. The date of the report was the same day. Start time for 032 was 9:15 to 10:45. He worked an hour and a half on this session. It was done by CRV, which is Controlled Remote Viewing, a methodology developed for basically for the remote viewing effort by a man named Ingo Swann. says stage 4 training. The CRV methodology has basically 7 stages that were used in the military. The first stage identifies just the basic gestalts of what's at the target. Then you go for details. Then you go for finer details. And as it progresses on up through stage 6, you can get immaculate details. So this was stage 4 training, which is getting the most important details, not the little nitpicky things afterwards. And so viewer identification was 032. And again, there we have the asterisk that is looking very suspicious to me. The mission, access and describe the target identified by the coordinate. Now, coordinates, you never tell a remote viewer anything about the target, about the task. Because if you do, logical mind comes into play. Oh, and I bet I know what it is, and it just pollutes everything. And so we used what they called encrypted coordinates. Ingo Swann, when he generated this methodology, used actual geographic coordinates. Well, the problem is if you don't know where something is, you can't use the geographic coordinates. And so we used at this time, we used just random numbers. So it was Project 0209, which was supposedly a training project. And the coordinates, the only thing given to the viewers was this is target 781-410-110121. Describe it. And there would be many times when, actual project, this is project 970403, question 3, what's the answer? Simple as that. And okay, secret, NF, no foreign, SK is Skeet, which is a cover name. Viewer tasking, see mission statement. The mission statement is what the project manager puts out, the full statement that is never seen by the viewers. Okay. The comments training 0209 is the Ark of the Covenant. This is put on the cover sheet after everything is collected together. Viewer 032 attained excellent sight contact, doing very well with stage 4 structure, which again shows me that it was a training session. Okay. Viewer also exhibits the ability to keep AOL. AOL is what's called analytic overlay. You get impressions. You say, I don't know what the target is, but it's red, it's round, it's rubbery. Analysis. Oh, I'll bet it's a ball. And from there on, you're polluted. You're going to play the ball game and everything else. And so the control of analytic overlay is of massive importance to a remote viewer. To keep AOL to a minimum, have to be careful with editing, though. Editing is where a viewer gets an impression, but that's not what he writes down. He writes down what he thinks the impression means rather than the impression. This does not seem to be a problem at this time, just something to watch out for. Evaluation, 4 out of a score of 5. 5 was tops. And G stands for Galvin, who was our director at the time. Handled by a way of Skeet channels only. Skeet is a cover name for the classified process of handling classified information. Secret is scratched out because it was declassified, as you see up on the very top, in the year 2000, August the 8th, 2000. Then classified by DIA DT. Now, the DIA is the Defense Intelligence Agency. DT is the unit in the Defense Intelligence Agency that oversaw the remote viewing project. Declassify, OADR, means on or about recommended. Okay. On or about the date recommended. And then down at the bottom, the CIA number, which is also up at the top. And so that may explain some of what went on when we were doing this session. Now, there were actually 5 of us, as I remember, that did this target. And each remote viewer has their own strengths and weaknesses. And we kept track of that with the database. And so, one is a great dowser. The others have dowsing ability, but maybe not up to that level. Others will describe a target location just to a T, but never find out what the purpose of the location is. They just can't do that. And so everybody has their own strengths and weaknesses. So we had a team, and we knew what their strengths were. We looked at their sessions, and we could then take the ones that we knew were most accurate and with an analyst build a complete picture. And so many times we would have viewers who had 70 to 80% accuracy, but by picking and choosing according to the database, we could come up with 95% accuracy on a target. And so hopefully that explains some of this.
Well, that definitely explains the how, but that still leaves the question of why. Why would the CIA want to locate the Ark of the Covenant?
If this was a true training target, the CIA didn't know anything about it because it would have been tasked by Fern Galvin within the unit.
Okay.
That's why I look at these asterisks and I have to wonder. And the fact that it was classified by the Defense Intelligence Agency. And so that sort of tells me that very possibly someone in the chain of command wanted to know. And so they made it an unofficial, official task.
I see. Okay. So maybe the CIA itself was not looking for the Ark of the Covenant, but a curious insider.
Maybe not. There's no way to tell at this point. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. But
Can I
this
ask a
is
question?
the declassified. Sorry, go for it, Brent.
Yeah. What, if you can share, like, what are some other examples of targets that there may have been?
The next day of battle, we kept up with Saddam Hussein, and we knew everything he was going to do, where he's going to be, and all that a day before he got there and did it. And we passed all of that up. In fact, Joe McMonagle, when the helicopters went over to rescue the hostages in Kuwait, they hit this sandstorm that disabled the helicopters. Joe knew it immediately, sent that information up the chain of command, and it got to the president 10 minutes before the electronic communication got to the president that the helicopters had failed.
Wow. So I guess I didn't realize that remote viewers could work outside of the framework of time.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
in controlled remote viewing, time is just another dimension, and it's treated as such. So for the process of working, saying move 5 days forward in time or 5 days backward in time is no different from saying move 5 feet forward or 5 feet backwards. Same process. The viewer isn't always told whether he's moving in time or space.
Okay. Wow. Very fascinating. I feel like we could do a whole deep dive on the remote viewing segment. Okay.
It's an amazing thing that was developed for the military, and it got to where we were never surprised at what we could do, but I don't think anybody would ever stop being amazed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Real quick, we have a listener, JJ, who's asked several times about non-human intelligence. And JJ, we will get to your question. Thank you for sticking with us. It brought out a whole discussion in our chat about many, many things. So we will get back to that. But real quick with the remote viewing, are there still remote viewers working for the government?
I hope so. This is another way that I dodge that question. I say that the government would be stupid not to have remote viewers working for them right now.
Okay. Well,
that changes the question to, does our government ever do anything stupid?
Depends
possible,
on...
I suppose.
Not touching that.
Yeah, we'll leave that for another show.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so one more question for you about your knowledge of the Ark of the Covenant. And of course, we don't want you to give that away for the reasons that you already stated, but there are many shows about it on the History Channel and all over the places. Have you ever heard somebody say the location and go, oh, well, somebody else knows?
I've heard a lot of people say the location, and I've never heard them say it right.
Okay.
But yeah, no, one of my fortes is getting details, and basically what I found matches 032's, but gets more detailed. What I found was that it is underground. It is in a cave-like situation, which has a dead end, and it is located at the back of that dead end place. In front of it, leading up to it, is statues and symbols of all of the evil demons that the other religions believe in.
Oh.
And so the other religions would come, if they discovered this, would come, those demons, their belief in those demons would keep them from going forward. And therefore, those symbols, statues, and demons and all were there to protect from the other religions getting to the Ark of the Covenant. And quite a long thing along that cave-like thing. Yeah.
Interesting.
And there were other things we found too, but
okay, so explain what we're seeing now on the screen. Lyn, is this something that you provided to us?
No, I'm not 32.
Okay, so this was drawn by number 32.
It's not dissimilar from what we found. See, 32, he says this, and he describes it as mummies.
Okay.
That is an AOL. He sees these lined up and all, and he says, oh, I know what it is. It's mummies.
Right.
What I found were that it's statues and things, but I went in, mentally tapped on them, felt them, drew them, and so on. And then me labeling them as statues that's still an AOL. But there comes a point in time in your viewing when you can't help but say, oh, this is obviously what it is. Yeah.
Okay. Very interesting. We've got Vincent in our chat just dropping all kinds of info that I'm not following the ties here, but maybe we're gonna have to do a deep dive into all of these locations that he is sending us. Okay, shall we get into some of these questions here, Tim, that JJ and others have thrown our way?
Yes, I think that's a good idea because, Lyn, you've got a lot of people that really look up to you, and they've got a lot of questions. If you don't mind addressing some of them, let's see. Want to find one from, J Just was wanting to know, is the Ark alien technology?
Was that a question for me?
Yes,
I guess it could be for any of us. Yeah.
I really have no idea. That gets back to the question: is God an alien? You know, I really have no idea on that. I wouldn't even know how to answer that. Are there aliens? Absolutely, yeah. Is this alien technology? I can't say no.
Brent, you may have a take on that.
That is outside the realm of my expertise.
Well,
I just want to say, a couple of times JJ said, NIH, non-human intelligence. I mean, we could be talking about many things there. We could be talking about angels. We could be talking about all sorts of entities. So who knows?
Well, that's right. And I mean, I grew up religious, and it always intrigues me. Well, first of all, I find those matters to be not mutually exclusive. Okay, just like Eric Bard told us, he believed there's a theory of everything. Einstein believed there's a theory of everything. I think these things all coalesce: religion, metaphysics, physics, astrophysics, quantum mechanics, the paranormal, the supernatural, the spiritual, right? So I don't think they're mutually exclusive, but it always intrigued me how religious peers of mine, I would call them, or friends or family, would tell you that there is no such thing as aliens, or extraterrestrial life, but they go every Sunday and they worship and fully well believe in otherworldly non-human beings, which essentially is the definition of aliens and extraterrestrials. So I just do not find it to be mutually exclusive. I personally believe that, yes, indeed, the Ark was alien tech. And so it doesn't exclude definitions. That doesn't exclude religion or things. I just think it almost goes without saying. That's what you were pointing out, Lyn.
I have a cartoon on a wall in my other office. It's 3 fish, goldfish in a fishbowl looking out, and one of them says, "Is it possible that there's another fishbowl somewhere in the world with fish in it?"
That's a great way to look at it. And a lot of people wonder, there is such thing as the fishbowl analogy. I mean, are we in a fishbowl? I mean, I guess you'd have to say we kind of are, right?
There are aliens and they are real. Okay.
And Jay just also wanted to ask Lyn about non-human intelligence and their involvement in humanity's creation.
Mm-hmm. It ranges. I had been tasked to on one project that I can talk about now. The task was to take the the proven incidents of alien contact, and assess their psychic ability, compare and contrast it to human psychic ability. And after massive work and all that, I found out that, well, my summary was that you can divide the aliens into 4 groups: friendly, non-friendly. And in those, more psychic than we are, or equal or less psychic than us. So there's 4 groups. And that from the incidents that were proven and recorded, documented, I found that those that are less or equal to us and friendly are basically here for minerals, goods, for trade. The ones that are less psychic than we are equal and unfriendly, they only get here by accident. They don't want to be around us, okay? Of the ones that are more friendly, are friendly and more psychic than we are, they want us to develop that ability. They want us to become better than we are. The others that are unfriendly just want us wiped off the face of the earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what's in it for them? And so I studied, and this one incident that happened to some guys that were camping out on a lake, and they saw this UFO come up, and they were abducted by the UFO once it got right over them. And that's when it dawned on me that those aliens are much more psychic PK ability than we have, but they have no range. They had to be right over you.
Mm.
We can see across time and space like we're looking across a room. And so if we get out into the universe and we have this ability adapted and honed and skilled, we're going to be a force to reckon with in the universe, which is why our friends want us to develop it and our enemies don't want us out there. Yeah. And so that was the end thing of the report that I turned in, and it was well accepted. And people who knew more about the project than I will ever be allowed to know came back and they said, fantastic assessment. Yeah. So.
Wow. CJ, I was wanting to ask Lyn something that
Yeah.
I'm not clear about. Lyn, do you know how remote viewing came about? When did it? I don't know if discovered is not the right word, because I feel like this is a preternatural
you
human
mentioned it
condition
earlier.
you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a history of it. It's always been around. The ability has always been around. It's native to humans. But during World War II, Adolf Hitler had a project called Dr. Grunbaum. Grunbaum is German for green tree, and it was based on the Hebrew mysticism of the Kabbalah. And he was deep into mysticism. And when he lost the war, the German goods, the victors divide the spoils. It was all divided between Russia, England, France, and the U.S., basically. And, other countries got nibbles here and there, but mainly those. The rocketry, the computer stuff, and technology was of great interest, and nuclear stuff was of great interest to the U.S., England, and France. The Dr. Grunbaum project was those crazy psychics. We don't want those. Russia said, you bet, we'll take it. Well, in the 60s, we were losing our classified information like crazy. I mean, it's like we didn't even have secrets anymore. And the intel division was looking for moles and couldn't find any and all that. Finally, Russian Colonel Penkovsky tried to defect, and he brought with him papers showing that the Russians had developed that and that they were getting our secrets using psychic spies. And everybody had a good laugh about that, but the intelligence services, they don't laugh. They don't laugh very much. They looked at it and they looked at the results and they said, this seems to be working. Well, we have to have it too. So they went out to SRI, Stanford Research Institute, found 2 laser physicists who had written a paper about how the intentions and the attention of a laser physicist actually affects the beam of light.
Wow.
And so that was the closest thing. And so they gave them the thing. They hooked up with Ingo Swann and actually developed this process for using your intuition to spy.
Wow.
That's incredible.
It works. It got to the point where we could draw floor plans of a building where a hostage was being kept in order to let the rescuers go in and rescue him without getting him killed.
Wow. Such a great and practical application of remote viewing as well.
Well, I would wonder also if Lyn, you said that it's been around as long, as humans have existed.
It's a human ability, yeah.
And I think there's an argument to be made about biblical visions and things like that. That's
intuition,
prophets, or that could be described perhaps as remote viewing as well, and their ability to see beyond.
And most Christian denominations, psychic is a 4-letter word, but the intuitive ability has been around for a long time. The police won't have anything to do with psychics, but they talk about the blue sense all the time, and so forth. But the Ingo Swann technique is not in and of itself psychic. It's a structured method whereby you get in touch with your subconscious mind, take those impressions and bring them out in a structured order so that then they can be written up as a document, handed to a customer, and the customer can get a structured bit of information out of it. It's not you hand a customer a thing saying, oh, their aura is blue. Well, what does that mean? No, we would say, it is this size, it is at this location. And Ingo proved that he could describe the location of anything down to 10 feet in the world.
Wow.
And we used it to find atomic warheads. We used it to look through the insides of buildings where their scientists were developing things. We used it for we used it for spying.
Yeah.
Actually, it's not true. Bad countries have spies. We have intelligence collectors. But we used it for intelligence collecting.
Nice. That's a great way to describe it. My grandfather fought in World War II, and he would always say that they liberated things from castles. They never stole anything, but they liberated some things.
They didn't steal a thing. They just
liberated them. Yeah. You mentioned police department psychics. One of my all-time favorite television shows, and it's a comedy, was called Psych, and it's about a psychic detective for the Santa Barbara Police Department, and he's not actually psychic. He just uses his intuition and other senses to solve crimes. But Love that show. And before we jump into some more questions, I did just want to mention to our listeners and viewers that we do have some super chats and super stickers available. We do depend on the support of our listeners to keep our show going. So we appreciate any of those that might come through, and we'd be happy to throw up any comments or questions that you have with those super chats and super stickers. So many questions about aliens tonight in our chat.
Okay.
And as much as I would love to do a deep dive into that, we really did want to focus more on the CIA and the Ark of the Covenant. So we'll try to get a few in. But in terms of the Ark of the Covenant, you mentioned, of course, what you have seen and what they have in front of it. Is there a group of people or a person that is currently tasked with protecting the Ark of the Covenant?
Yeah.
There is. Okay.
To the point of killing anybody that gets anywhere near it. Yeah.
Curious.
Yeah.
Brent or Tim, any further questions on the Ark of the Covenant before we dive into some other topics here?
I don't think I have any questions. I'm just my mind has been sufficiently blown in this time, Lynn.
Yeah.
And it's been so cool.
I feel like you're getting, Brent, in one show what I've gotten in like 5 years worth of this podcast and developing my knowledge around all of these different concepts and ideas.
It's a game changer.
Well, I think there's something like so much of what I deal in can feel like ancient history. It can feel just like the does it matter anymore, right? Like, haven't we moved past this in our age of enlightenment and things like that? And so what I'm just appreciating is the reminder that I live in all the time, that this is real. It is present and has bearing on our present reality as well. So
are you talking about the remote viewing or the Ark?
Well, I'm talking about the Ark. I mean, the fact that I'm just more talking about it's a reminder that it still matters, that the Ark still matters, and that these things that we talk about, that I talk about every Sunday morning, aren't just like relics from the past,
right?
But are still with us, So.
Well, I had a question for Brent. Brent, when we're talking about the Ark of the Covenant, we kind of dip our toes into something that's not talked about a lot in religious circles, but it's certainly there, this notion of divine wrath versus divine protection. Okay, is that relevant today? How are religious people supposed to take that?
I'm not sure I'm tracking with the question as it relates to the Ark of the Covenant, Tim.
Well, for example, like they carried the Ark into battle, right? Like the Ark is supposed to be this incredibly powerful thing that's still being protected, and it kind of symbolizes, this notion of, like if your city falls too far into sin in the Old Testament, it might have been obliterated from the face of the earth, divine wrath, right? However, if you fell in line with the Ark of the Covenant and the people and that sort of group, then you had divine protection. How does that apply to today?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to remember that when we read the ancient scriptures and we hear stories like that, that is largely the way that they viewed the world. That divine favor came whether you won or lost, right? Like that, you wrote the story based on the outcome often, and so. So I think that's a large part of it when we are reading backward through scripture. As it relates to today, I mean, what I'm thinking about is just the human longing to be near to power, but not just to be near it, but to control it. And this is also one of those tales as old as time as well. In the Tower of Babel, from the story in the Garden of Eden, it's all about that human desire to become divine, to become like God. What Christians would say is there's a way to do that, and that is to follow the way of Jesus, but that's often not good enough for human beings. We have this insatiable desire for more. And so I think that as I'm listening, is what drives often that quest. That's the whole Indiana Jones arc, no pun intended, as well, right? Is the desire for it is because of the power that it can give us, that we can become like God. And I think it's in those places where we would feel what we might term God's wrath. I'm not one who necessarily believes that God is somebody who doles out, punishment or, is throwing lightning bolts from the sky and intentionally causing harm to smite the enemies. Like, that's just not the way that I tend to see things. Rather, I think when we talk about something like divine wrath, or when we talk about, eternal punishment, that is not something that God causes, but something that often we bring on ourselves as the natural course of events from our not following the way of justice, truth, righteousness, etc. What I would describe as the way of Jesus.
Yeah.
So
I always thought that the 10 Commandments were 10 really good suggestions. You shouldn't
Pretty
kill.
good.
Yeah. And, you shouldn't kill each other. And here we have the three religions that believe in the one God that said, thou shalt not kill. And we're out there killing each other just like crazy, and many times killing and then dancing in the streets because we did something good for God, I fail to understand people.
Yes, same.
Yeah.
Well, Lyn and Brent, both, do you think the Ark, it's out there today, does it have more power as a symbol, or does it have more power as the literal object imbued with some sort of otherworldly power?
Whatever power it has, I don't know. But I know that its power as a talisman, as a symbol, is extreme. There are people who 100% believe that if you have access to the Ark of the Covenant or the chalice, that you have God in your hands right there. And so I think the talisman aspect of it is probably more strong in our society than any actual power that it may have. That's my belief.
Good answer.
Brent?
What about you, Brent?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna have to think about that a little bit more.
Have you ever seen the movie
Yeah.
The Book of Eli?
I have not.
Yeah.
Come out in '88.
Great
I heard
movie.
that was a good time for movies. Yeah.
Not 88. It was more like 2008. It had Denzel Washington, I believe. And essentially, he had this very powerful object that he carried around. It was a post-apocalyptic world, right? And he was tasked with getting it to, the other side of the country from wherever he was at, because it held so much power. And along the way, there were lots of other groups that, wanted that from him as well. And he carried around in a backpack. And it was a big reveal, right? Like, nobody was quite sure what he had in his backpack. And he was blind too, which was really interesting. And ultimately, he did reveal what this extremely powerful object was that everybody wanted, because they knew that they would be able to control people with this object. And it was the last known copy of the Bible.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And it became one of the most powerful
Spoiler
artifacts
alert, huh?
in the world. Well,
Yeah, no, I have to watch it.
It's been out for a little while. I feel like it's Brent's fault for not seeing it.
I was probably reading the Bible and didn't have time to watch it.
Oh, very interesting. This has been a super interesting topic to learn more about and discuss, and especially with you, Lyn. You have such great knowledge of the Ark of the Covenant and all of its glory. But I do know some people had other questions that, unless Tim, did you want to dive into some of these other topics you sent me earlier that I meant to read and did not?
No, that's okay. I mean, we want to respect Lyn's time, and we've
Okay.
pushed past our
Yeah.
time limit.
I'm retired. I have the time. Yeah.
Well,
I'm just tired. So
Say always.
yeah. Uh-huh.
Retired and retired and retired every day.
I love that. Well, I mean, I did want to ask Lyn, like, this is not the only story that's kind of gained popularity here recently.
Right.
This is not exactly a declassified document like the one we were just looking at. It's more like the CIA collected some news stories, some Russian news stories about this incident. And it's been purported that during Mikhail Gorbachev's time in the 90s, I believe, that a group of soldiers were attacked by a UFO, that they hit it with a missile, brought it down, and some aliens came out of the UFO and turned them to stone. And the CIA had compiled some documentation of that. Did you see that, Lyn? Do you have any take on that?
I didn't know about that incident, but similar incidents have happened, yeah.
Oh,
Who was turned to stone, the aliens or the soldiers?
No, the soldiers in the story were.
Okay.
Wow, that's really interesting. And Lyn, on those other incidents, were any of them in America, or were they all overseas?
Oh, no, in different countries, and I think in the U.S. too, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, really interesting. And there was another declassified document that gained a lot of attention, Lyn, and it did have to do with remote viewing. And I'm going to pull it up here so that I can see it. Essentially, and I find this one
UFO
so
Busters
interesting.
just said, I'm always turned into stoned.
Hey,
I couldn't help myself.
It happens in Australia.
Stays
in
Australia, yeah.
So don't be telling us that. Don't spoil your secrets. Well, Lyn, so the CIA, as it turns out, they were also using remote viewers to look for other things in other places and other times. And one of the very interesting things that they sent a remote viewer to look at was Mars. And this sounds like such science fiction, right? But yet it's a real document. They sent them to look at Mars 1 million BC.
Yeah.
And are you familiar with this story, Lyn?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. If I remember, the 1 million BC one was Joe McMoneagle. Several of us did that target. There's a thing in the controlled remote viewing where you get so involved in the session you're doing that you quit paying attention to anything around you. And all of the impressions that you're getting, sight, smell, taste, everything, are coming from your subconscious mind. When that happens, it's called bilocation or perfect sight integration. And when it's perfect sight integration, you can't tell that you're not at the target. The first time that ever happened to me, I was given some coordinates, had no idea what it was, and was working my session. And all of a sudden, anytime I remote view, I take my shoes off. I don't know why. This thing, and I could feel sand under my feet. And I looked down, and there was sand all over the place. No table, no remote viewing table, no room around me. There was sand. And I looked up, and there was this opening several yards in front of me. So I walked to the opening, looked, and I was in a thing that had sloped surface and was all eroded and everything else. And I looked up, and I saw these things out there, and the sun was out, but it was dim. The sky was the wrong color, and it was daytime and all that, and cold, just bitter cold. And so anyway, at that time, the picture of the Cydonia region of Mars was still classified. That was over a year old when it came out to the public. And so I happened to be out at the place that had that picture, and got the picture and looked at it, and I said, I've been there. And it was the Sedona region of Mars. And, they can read your license plate from 250 miles up through our thick atmosphere. You're going to tell me all they can get is a fuzzy picture of a mountain in Mars? Come on, and,
Yeah.
The detailed picture that they show of Mars, of the Sedona region now, they always say, this is a computer-generated clarify. You haven't seen it. And so anyway, I looked, and there was this sloped area and a little opening. And I can't say I walked on Mars, okay, because I didn't. But I've had the experience of walking on Mars. And we did that, and we did a lot of ET targets, finding the ET bases on the Earth, going into them, and all of that. We did a lot of that work, and on many of the things on Earth, we got feedback.
Wow. You mentioned bilocation, and we've heard about bilocation on this show before, specifically from Diana Pasulka, who talked about that. She's the author of American Cosmic, lives down the road from CJ, Brent, and myself here in Wilmington, North Carolina. And she specifically mentions a Spanish nun that bilocates to New Mexico, I believe in the 1800s, and interacts with the natives there. And they actually tell about her presence and her attempt to convert them to Christianity, I believe, or perhaps Catholicism, but I think Christianity. Lyn, when you were bilocating, did you ever interact with other people? Were they aware of your presence?
They were not in the ones that I did. Now, Mel Riley one time had bilocated to one of the Civil War battle sites, and was really deep into it. When he came out of the session, he was coming back from the operations building over to the admin building, and somebody said, "What'd you do? Cut yourself?" And he had blood on his shirt that was not his.
Wow.
And so these things happen. Listen, the human mind is phenomenal beyond even the unexplained. And all of this stuff that we did, the lengths that we went to, reading documents locked in safes halfway around the world. We're in kindergarten. We really are. The Chinese have gone into PK. They have been specializing in PK, and we have movies and pictures of them having something in a thick glass bottle and actually moving the thing outside of the bottle without opening the bottle. And they're into PK. The Russians were into spying. The Bulgarians and the different
into protecting the Ark of the Covenant. Oh no, not that one.
The different countries each have their own agenda, And this is being developed in every country that I know of. San Marino is developing it,
Wow.
Mm.
That person you mentioned that came back with blood, I suddenly had this horrible nightmare, no pun intended, of one of my childhood scarring moments, Nightmare on Elm Street. It literally reminded me of something that you would see in Nightmare on Elm Street, where you enter the dreamland and you come back with literal physical scars from it. And Lynn, one thing I've always wondered about remote viewing, when you were in your location doing the remote viewing, was your location protected in any sort of way? Did you ever feel at risk, or did you ever fear that something or someone out there could come back to you and where you were?
Mm.
I
Like a
was just
hitchhiker
Hitchhiker.
effect, maybe?
Yeah, I was discovered by the Chinese at one time in one of my sessions. The Russians were always looking for us. And we had developed a sort of thing called indirection, where instead of viewing a target, you would view an analogy of the target. And that way you're not exposing yourself
Mm.
to people at the target. We found a lot of ways to protect ourselves. Yeah.
Could you physically be harmed if you were remote viewing somewhere? And
I came back from one session with a broken rib. Yeah. Yeah.
wow.
Wow.
Wild. While I was getting ready for this show tonight and curling my hair and thinking about remote viewing, I just kept singing in my head, I always feel like somebody's watching me. And then I figured
And
I'm
I have
probably not
no
going to sleep for
privacy.
weeks.
Let me give a little explanation here. Remote viewing, controlled remote viewing, is a methodology that is not psychic in any way. It's a methodology that lets your conscious mind and your subconscious mind discuss things and talk with each other.
Mm.
It's better than 10 years on the psychiatric couch, But there are a lot. Once it came out to the public, then all the psychics jumped on the bandwagon because it was scientifically proven. And we had crystal ball remote viewers and palm remote viewers and tea leaf remote viewers. And the thing is, the bad thing is that a lot of people learn that they are psychic, they have strong intuition. And so they're told, oh, you're a remote viewer. And so instead of studying dowsing, which has a humongous history, or scrying or anything like that, they get funneled off into this military thing of studying remote viewing. And when I first got to the unit, Skip Atwater, who was project director there at the time, took me over to the operations building and sat me down in the front room there, and he said, "I want you to look around at this room and describe it for me." And so I was describing the walls and everything else, and he let me go. And finally, I looked at him and he said, "Okay, what I want you to know is that in this room, it's okay to be psychic." And it was like 50 years of weight was just lifted off my shoulders. And I thought, this is where I need to be, because I've had all these experiences all my life and had to hide them, because if you don't hide them, you're of the devil and you're going to hell, and all this. And when he said that, I thought, I'm home. Just that simple.
It's good to find a home.
Yeah. And so if somebody says they're good at dowsing, hey, teach them to dowse. Don't tell them they're a remote viewer. Remote viewing is the method that was developed by Inga Swan and used by the military And it is a protocol of how to talk to your subconscious mind. That's all it is. Yeah. That's why it can be taught to anybody.
Wow, really interesting. And CJ, another thing we wanted to bring up, this has really been the news, and we've been taking deep dives into this, and that's the JFK files.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, over 80,000 pages. It's a very good chance that whatever you're looking at, you're the only one that's doing any analyzing of it, right? Because it's so voluminous, and it just blows my mind, Lyn. It made me realize that, we've always heard people made fun of as being conspiracy theorists and that sort of thing. But as I turn page after page and I read about people who had arranged marriages, and I read about people who are CIA assets, and they work at John's Electronics Shop on Main Street, which is the front for the CIA. What's that, CJ?
I'm not sure where you're going with this.
Well, where I'm going with this is it made me realize that I'm not sure we ever know or have known what reality is. It just seems to be a facade. And I would like to know how far, based on the JFK files and then the stuff we don't even know, how far will our institutions go to hide the truth, whatever that truth might be?
I had one of the highest clearances in the military because of work I did, not for the remote viewing unit, but before and after. And when I went in to get that clearance, the guy told me, he said, "This is the highest clearance I have ever seen in my career." And I said, "What is the highest clearance there is?" And without even thinking about it, he said, "Truth."
Wow.
Nobody gets to know the truth. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we've always heard. We've heard analogies from people like Colonel Corso. A lot of people think different things about him, but he wrote one of CJ and mine's favorite books, The Day After Roswell. And he compared the truth to a box that is hidden by the UFO cabal or whoever you want to put in charge of the box. And the box has the truth in it. And it's hidden in this cabin in a secret location. And as soon as somebody gets anywhere close to it, they take the box and they move it to another cabin in another secret location. They put it inside of another box with a secret around it. And in order to find that cabin with those boxes in it, you have to make your way through the first ones, and it gets shuffled around to one cabin after another.
And then they all end up in the Vatican.
It's in the Vatican or a U.S. Government warehouse somewhere.
It makes you wonder if what's in the Ark of the Covenant is the final truth.
Okay, so I know you want to talk about JFK, but a person asked this question in the chat, and I thought, why didn't we ask that already? So C. Marinick possibly said, did the practice session done on the Ark reveal its contents?
Nobody did. I don't know if it's 32 or 03 that said something about something they found inside, but just one item. And I don't right now remember what it was.
Oh, we're going to need that.
I think that it was golden or something like that.
Okay. All right. Okay, back to the JFK files, if you wanted to dive into that, or we can go.
Well, no, we don't have to dive into it any further, but that does take me to one of our hot takes that I was wondering because, we did have this conspiracy, and if do you want to get into some hot takes? Are y'all okay with that?
Yeah.
Or did you want to go into something else before then, CJ?
No, let's hop in. Let's do hot takes.
Okay. Well, we had the chance. I had the chance to ask another guest. His name is Andrew Bustamante. I'm not sure if you know Andrew. He's former CIA, and he currently is on the television show Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. Well, I asked him this question, and he kind of had a good chuckle about it. But after looking into the JFK files, I'm now convinced that it's more likely than ever before, because I discovered in the JFK files this very famous
I know where this question's
television,
going.
music personality in Austria. And they actually passed away this January. They were 101, and they wrote a letter to the CIA begging them not to reveal their identity. They had made this life in Austria, but as it turns out, the whole time they were a CIA asset. They were a POW in World War II. They emerged basically as an asset for the CIA. They interrogated Nazis, you name it, and they remained a CIA asset ever since then. A famous radio, television, music personality in Austria. Lyn, do you think that the CIA could have written or did write Wind of Change by the Scorpions?
Right, what?
It's a song, Wind of Change by the Scorpions. Do you know the song?
I don't know.
Tim just wants to get to the
Oh.
bottom of this one so badly. He's going to ask every CIA agent who comes on the show.
I do know. I was watching the X-Files one night, and the episode that has the talk show host for Jeopardy,
Pat Sajak.
Pat
No,
Sajak.
that's White. That's Wheel of Fortune.
Alex Trebek.
Thank
Will
you.
Ferrell.
Trebek, yeah, and Jesse as the Men in Black. I was watching it with my wife, and it's a comedy routine. That whole episode is a comedy, and I was watching it, and my wife was chuckling, and I was sitting there with my mouth just open, because in the background, almost all the way through it, there is classified information.
We gotta go watch
And that was at the time, but and hints toward it and all that. I was just sitting there with my mouth open, nobody should know this stuff. And there it was on the TV screen. And
How did that happen?
somebody leaks stuff.
We've
I
always
have got
heard
to
that.
go watch this episode.
That was the episode of the X-Files?
Yeah.
If
Alex Trebek.
If you don't know
Oh.
what it means, then you probably won't see it even when you're looking at it. But it's stuff in the background. Yeah.
Oh,
There's a
very,
good chance I won't know what it means.
a very good
We'll
chance.
have to do a group video chat and watch the episode together, and you can break it down for us.
Well, luckily,
Do a watch party.
Before I went to the military unit, computers were coming out, and I would be, the deep secret projects. They couldn't just get somebody from IBM to come in and program their computers. So I'd get pulled out to different places, and I got to where, when I went to one of these units, I would wind up saying, "Look, I don't want to know anything that I don't want to know. You tell me what you need with your computer, I'll do it. Don't tell me some of this stuff, okay? I don't want to know." Because most of the stuff has a good reason. Some of the stuff will give you nightmares.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
right. That's for sure. And speaking of that, of nightmares, Lyn, I believe you have some experience with using remote viewing for some other things, such as searching for missing persons. Is there anything you can tell us or want to tell us about that?
Oh, I'll tell you something about in the military unit. General Dozier was abducted by the Red Brigade in Italy, and Joe not only located him down to the building that he was in. We have done a lot of work for the police for missing children, which is my favorite use right now of the remote viewing. And missing persons, missing evidence, things like that. Finding it, describing it, describing things that may be at a crime scene that the police would overlook, and we would say, well, here's the importance of this, and sure enough, it wound up being important. Things like that. Yeah, we do a lot of practical work for businesses, medical applications, shoot, even treasure hunters. Um, uh, how to go to Las Vegas and come back with more money than you took.
Just
Things
treasure
like
hunter in and of itself.
yeah, and so yeah, there are just now that it's out in the civilian arena, we're finding just new uses right and left for the remote viewing. It's an information collection ability. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm still looking into one missing persons case that we were hoping to do a show on sometime. His name was Carl Landers, and he's actually a part of several documentaries, and he's often associated with a UFO abduction, though there's no evidence for that. But he went missing on Mount Shasta in California. He was hiking with a group of friends, and he took off ahead of them one morning, and he was never seen again. And as I was looking into the police report, which is not on any of the documentaries, but I've had it, I gained access through FOIA, they mentioned how the friends had the number of a psychic, they called it in the police report, in the hotel, and they wanted the police to contact the psychic, to help them find Carl Landers.
Yeah, the police don't like to admit that they use psychics, but they do. And the remote viewing the controlled remote viewing that was developed for the military, we have a policy of just keeping quiet when we work for police departments. We don't want the credit for it. We don't. So many psychics will work for the police and then go out and say, "Oh, I solved this case," and all that stuff. They didn't. But we have found that since psychic is a 4-letter word for most people, in a police investigation, they bring it to court, and you say, "Oh yeah, this was found by a psychic," that immediately biases the judge, the jury, and all this. And so we depend on word of mouth between the police departments. We don't advertise. We don't talk about it. And as simple as that. And the controlled remote viewing is being quite well accepted by police departments, businesses, even medical profession, so on. Yeah.
Very interesting. This would be a great time to say we have people from all over the world tuning in and joining us right now. And we want to say thank you to each of you. We appreciate you. Some of you are on YouTube, and we know some of you haven't subscribed yet. We're at 22,000 subscribers roughly on
when
YouTube.
Did that happen?
Overnight, basically. It was gradually over the last 5 years since we took off COVID in 2020. And all we had was CJ's mom and dad tuning in and pretending to be somebody else. And we've gained a few viewers here and there ever since then. But we've got people from all over the world joining us tonight to speak to Lyn Buchanan and Brent Levy, Levi, and CJ Derringer, and I'm Dr. Mouse, and this is All Things Unexplained, and we really appreciate you being here. If you feel so inclined, we have super chats and super stickers available, and we would appreciate you, and we would get those right up on the screen. So thank you. If you haven't subscribed on our YouTube, please do. Some of you are watching on my LinkedIn page, and a lot of you are watching on our Twitter. That's at AT Unexplained. You can find us on Twitter and check out our website, allthingsunexplained.com. And Lyn, you you mentioned something, kind of like other uses for remote viewing in the next phase. That's kind of one of my hot takes for you. I've heard a lot of people bring this up to me, and I don't really know how to address it, but I heard a rumor recently of the possibility of AI
Wow.
evolving to remote view. Do you have a take on the possibility of either AI itself being able to remote view or AI being able to assist the human that is remote viewing?
I heard all of this, and so I put it through a whole bunch of tests, and basically it came up with known facts, but you give it, trying to find out an unknown fact, it's garbage. Yeah, it's a machine, it's a program. Will it ever do that? I can't say no, but I don't expect it anywhere in my lifetime.
That's a good point. I definitely wondered what you were going to say, and this is a hot take for both of you. I think I would love to get Brent's take on this one first. I mean, one of our favorite topics on this show, and I have heard of remote viewers who have spotted Bigfoot. So, Lyn, I'll take you after Brent. But Brent, I have heard different religious takes on Bigfoot too. But what's your take?
I certainly can't speak for an entire religion. But I have no reason not to believe in the existence, especially both you, Dr. Mounts, and CJ, as dear friends, are those who've taught me more about it than I knew beforehand. And because of you, I can't help but believe and want it to be true. Yeah.
Well, I like that answer. And, and plus, I mean, I do have a book on Amazon called Bigfoot Pickleball, which is a children's book about a family of Bigfoots that learn how to play the wonderful game of pickleball at their local YMCA, the Young Mythological Creatures Association. So now might be a great time for everybody to check out Bigfoot Pickleball.
And I think, like, just to be serious for a second, like I think if there is, like, I just think there's something beautiful about mystery, about and this is so much of what the show is about, and so much of what you are about. Like, I think the mystery is the spice of life. Like, it's that which keeps us yearning, growing, believing, and moving beyond the nihilism that this is all there is, too, and that leads to a sense of hopelessness, at least for me. And so I affirm the work here too, and the ways that is nurturing a sense of belief in the unexpected. So
I think one of the answers to that question is, if you get AI to firmly believe in God and you unplug it, is it going to heaven? Right at the present time, I think the answer is no. Okay.
That's really interesting. I've never thought of that.
Yeah.
Oh, that'll be, wow. Not sure what I'll think about if AI is in heaven. Bump into Alexa on the other side of the pearly gates.
She knows all your secrets.
Well, Lyn, one of the great mythological accounts in Bigfoot lore is this notion that a lot were uncovered and kept secret by the military during the Mount St. Helens eruptions. Are you familiar of any remote viewers attempting to look for Bigfoot or noticing Bigfoots?
I've heard reports from some remote viewers that I trust to have accuracy, saying that they've viewed Sasquatch and all that, and I'm not going to say that it's AOL, because I trust their viewing, and so I've never had that experience myself. Yeah.
Good answer. And I think maybe one more hot take, CJ, and I think I'll go with something I've been talking a lot about here lately, and that is Stargates. We've had a viral story recently involving the pyramids in Egypt, and some researchers hypothesize that there's something under it, under the Great Pyramid. That's the best way to say it. They hypothesized. They didn't actually discover it. But the lead researcher, Malanga, it turns out he's an expert. He's done extensive research in alien abductions. And he was actually part of a group called the Stargate Project, the Tuscany Stargate Project in Italy. And turns out there were a lot of Stargate projects in Italy. And I believe that these researchers think that the pyramid at one time was a Stargate to another dimension. And we've had guests on that talked about such things happening at CERN right now in Switzerland at the Large Hadron Collider. Lyn, do you have a take on Stargates?
When you said Stargate, that was one of our cover names for
That's
our
right.
military unit, Stargate. Yeah. You go down to South America, and there are ancient stories of doorways in solid rock where people would just disappear when they sort of walked in that doorway, and the doorway would only be this deep into the rock, but they would walk in and disappear. And so, is it possible to abort? And the answer is yes. By the way, transport means to take something somewhere. Teleport is to do it electronically. To do it mentally is called upporting. Okay, just common terminology. But upporting has been proven to be true. One incident in my own career didn't happen when I was in the military unit. It happened much younger. I was on the way from Tucson to Phoenix and stopped for a cup of coffee there in Tucson, pulled out of the restaurant, got onto the highway, and it's an hour and a half drive from Tucson to Phoenix. Pulled out onto the highway and drove immediately into Phoenix. And I have never understood that. I don't know what happened. It's one of those freak things that happens that you'll never understand. I just would like to know how to do it again, you know.
Do you think it was missing time? Did you associate any
No.
time missing?
No, the coffee was still too hot to drink.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. We've had people that have described a similar situation. Remember, CJ, but that involved, and that was a highway in California,
Right.
but that involves some missing time. So
Mhm.
that is really interesting. And before we move on to listener
Just
questions,
missing space. Yeah.
oh wow, that's a new one,
Yeah.
missing space, and we
But
know
that's only
space and
happened
time are
once in my life, never happened again, you know.
wow,
Mhm.
and we know they're entangled, space, time,
Yeah.
gravity, in ways we can't understand. Before we move on to listener questions, Lyn and Brent too. Lyn, you mentioned that your group had strengths and weaknesses, and you were all aware of them. What were your strengths and weaknesses? Can you share?
I can get into a target person's mind very easily, get their plans and intentions, get their thoughts, their feelings, and all that. Other people can describe a person down to being able to draw them. I can't do that. We had really good dowsers, and when it comes to dowsing, I can do it, you know, but don't depend on my pen being in the right place.
Can you clarify what you mean by dowsing?
Dowsing, the CRV method has several ways of dowsing. You can take a pendulum And there's one called sectoring, where you take a map and you sector it into 4 quadrants and you put the pendulum over it and say, is it in this quadrant, yes or no? This quadrant, yes or no? When you find the quadrant it's in, then you sector that into 4 and until you get it down. Another way of doing it is you put the pendulum in one corner and say, swing in the direction of the target. And when it starts swinging, you draw a line, move to the other corner and swing in the direction of the target, and you draw a line and the lines cross. And there's one called hotspot. You'll find a lot of dowsers use their hands to find a hotspot on a map or something like that. And one of the things that I found afterwards was, where do you test the baby's milk?
Wrist.
It's more sensitive than your fingers.
CJ.
And so you will see a lot of remote viewers going across a map like this rather than like this.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's more sensitive to pressure, heat, and all that. So if you say, okay, I don't know where the target is on this map, but I'm going to imagine a fire at the target, and you just feel across the heat, you have told your subconscious mind, I have an analogy here. Don't look for the target, look for the analogy. And this is, again, called an indirection. Yeah. And your subconscious gets over the target and say, "Oh, warm,"
Wow. That's really interesting. I think my wheels are turning now. Like,
I know, you could tell. You could see it happening.
Yeah.
Future career move here. I mean, picking out your next vacation spot, maybe.
But there are other ways. There are other ways of doing the dowsing, and those have been studied, databased for their accuracy, and we found there again that some people are very accurate doing this, but they take the pendulum and nothing. Other people are very accurate with the pendulum and get nothing when they do like this. And so even each one of the tools that was developed for CRV, every person has their own strength and weakness when it comes to using that tool. Yeah.
Well, Lyn, I was actually in the back of my mind familiar with the term dowsing, and this memory popped up in my head, but I didn't think it was what you were talking about. But I do have this memory of my dad showing me dowsing with a metal rod,
Oh, yeah.
or even a stick and water.
Yeah.
Looking for water. And I have the memory of him showing me, maybe I was 4 or 5 or 6 or 7, but I remember my dad doing that.
Or 28 or
yeah, I mean,
36.
It all blends together at this point.
They have one now where you take thread spools without the thread, they're already used, and you take a copper rod and make an L-shaped thing so that the end sticks it into the hole in the thing, and you walk across the field like this, and when you get over the water, the copper rods will cross and say, like, this is the place. There are people having success with it.
Oh, wow. I've been experimenting, and I don't know if it works or if it's because I believe it's going to work or what, but I've been experimenting with copper rods in my garden and seeing how it affects growth of the plants. And let me just tell you, I had a lot of cucumbers last year, so I think I was on to something. So
I think you're getting off on something here. We've gotten far from the path.
True. Well, I did want to ask the All Things Unexplained chaplain, our official chaplain, what are his greatest strengths and weaknesses?
I think humility is probably what I'm best at. Really, really good at humility. That's a joke. Thanks, CJ.
I was gonna say you crushed a pickleball spike in my face recently, and you didn't seem that humble.
I
about
haven't
it.
been invited back though, so I'm, curious about that. But yeah, no, I don't know. I think relationships and communication I'm decent at. Weaknesses. Do I have any? It's hard to pickleball probably is one.
I disagree.
Just a lot of many athletic running. I'm not great at that. Staying up until 11 seems to be a
It's tricky.
weakness here
Yeah.
on the East Coast. But yeah.
Well, I appreciate that. Lynn, have you played pickleball?
Never have.
Oh, you need to try it.
One thing, I have bad knees. I'm on a cane, and pickleball came around after I got on the cane, and so
Oh.
I don't do a lot of track and field anymore.
That's understandable. Understandable for sure. Well, Lynn and Brent, we both appreciate y'all being here with us so much.
Yeah.
CJ, should we do a couple listener questions?
You
real
know what?
quick?
I was going through all the ones that we had starred, and I really feel like we covered most of them in our conversation. So I think, I think it's probably time to say our good nights.
Well, I just want to thank y'all for inviting me and for being interested in the controlled remote viewing and in the work that the military did. We had a great effect. It was all black project work, so nobody ever knew about it. But we did a lot of good. I like to think we saved a lot of lives. I know that we saved the government buku dollars. For one thing, every unit has personnel and equipment.
Oh, we lost sound. Did you guys lose sound too?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Lynn, we
Lynn, I
lost
think your
your sound.
microphone went off.
How's this?
Oh, there we go.
Yes, we're back.
Okay. Yeah, in our unit, the personnel was the equipment. And so right there, that saved half of the cost of the unit. And the work that we did saved a lot in tactical expenses that never had to be done, making missions successful. And like I say, I think the government would be absolutely stupid to not have a remote viewing effort. But when you retire, they quit telling you secrets.
That's
Oh, man.
unfortunate.
Yeah.
Lynn, where can people find more information about you? Do you have any books or documentaries or anything out there?
Yeah.
Websites?
crviewer.com, crviewer.com. I teach online now. I have the courses all the way up through the most advanced, and also courses in medical applications, police applications, and things like that. And if you go to my webpage and look down on the bottom, there is a link that leads you to the courses. I also have a book out called The Seventh Sense. We found out very early on that just like a ninja person can tell everything going on around them, that's ambience, which is the sixth sense. When you can tell what's going on in Putin's office, that's remote viewing. That's psychic. That's the seventh sense. And so my book is called The Seventh Sense, and the appendices has a lot of training in it. And it's mainly about the story of what happened in the unit, what we did, and the people in the unit and all that. So it's a history book, Um, and for the audiobook of The Seventh Sense, I got a thing from Simon and Schuster saying that you can get it now for half price, which I think is like $4 now, something like that. I'm not sure. So
Oh, that's great.
Wonderful.
That's
Thank
great.
you, Lyn. And Lyn, as you mentioned, you guys did wonderful work saving people. Brent, you do wonderful work saving people as well.
it's true. Yeah.
Yeah, you do. You truly do. So share with everybody once again where they can find you, maybe Easter morning if they're looking for service.
Well, if you're in the Chapel Hill area, we're at Bynum Bridge at 6:45 for sunrise, 10 a.m. at Woods Charter School in Briar Chapel. Also online at 10 a.m., YouTube at Local Church PBO, Facebook at Local Church PBO. We'll live stream there, and you can find all of the archive at growlocal.church.
And please do. I am a Methodist minister. And
Oh, wow.
Wait, what?
yes,
You buried the lead, Lyn.
I wanted to go into the service as a chaplain.
Yes, you did
They
mention
ran me
that.
through all those tests, and they said, "No, you're going in as intel." And but I honestly think that the work that Brent does is more important, is in many, many ways, than the work that I do. I really do.
I have a feeling we're going to hear about that this Sunday.
I don't know that it's going to sneak its way into the Easter sermon, but
we'll figure it out.
I think that it could. I think it could. CJ, I am
You
obliged.
have to watch to find out. Yeah.
Yes.
I am obliged to get 2 of these in real
Oh
quick.
my
I
gosh,
made
Lyn, you're
promises.
killing me.
Lyn, this is from Carlos on X. Can you remote view your soulmate?
Oh, okay.
You can, yeah, but then let's say you remote view your soulmate and you see it's a real person, okay, and a specific person. That doesn't win that person for you. It just identifies that person, and you either succeed or you mess it up.
Oh, so you still have work to do.
Yeah, you still have work to do. Yeah.
And now you're a stalker, so great. Good.
Well, imagine you're already married.
Yeah.
And you found yourself, then
Yeah.
it's somebody different.
Yeah, and then it's
That
not
gets
your
awkward
spouse.
real quick. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that makes me think of one of the worst movies that I was ever forced to see, called The Time Traveler's Wife. I just thought it was the worst movie. Apparently, it was a book that was a pretty good book, but in the movie, that they never can quite get women right in the movie for some reason. But the guy, he can travel in time, and so he might go back to the age of dinosaurs or be solving, some great mystery like finding the Ark of the Covenant. And his wife is like, "Oh my gosh, if you're not back home in time for dinner, you've had it," like she's so upset at the smallest things, and he's literally, changing the world. But what can you do? Last question. This is from a big fan of yours, Lyn, J. Just on X. She wants to know, are you aware of any searched for UFO crash sites by remote viewers or other such teams?
Sure. Simple as that. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very good use. Not only search for the crash site, but also search for debris from the crash site, debris that may happen as a result of a visit, and how to interpret what happened, with an earthly thing because of the presence of, by the way, you know why they call them UAPs now, don't you?
No.
Because if they call them UAPs and talk about them, then they're heroes. and they never have to apologize for lying about UFOs.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And, they lied to us all this time about UFOs. And so now then, we discovered UAPs. No apology. Yeah.
Well,
Back
we
to
would,
that old truth box, huh?
yeah, we would love to have you back on to explore some of those subjects more sometime,
Absolutely.
Lyn.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes. Well, Lyn, Brent, Tim, it has been lovely. I've learned so much. I wrote down so many things, and I need to go and research a little bit more. I think we have an X-Files episode in our future that we all need to watch. And it's always fun. Thank you, Tim, for setting this one up. I'll throw it to you for, God help us, final thoughts.
Hey, I appreciate that. Look, I'm going to keep it brief. I really appreciate Brent. I really appreciate Lyn Buchanan so much for joining us. I really appreciate everybody in the chat and all the unexplained ones around the world for tuning in to speak tonight on the CIA's hunt for the Ark of the Covenant. And, you may not be able to hunt for the Ark of the Covenant, but one thing you can do is you can get off your screens and get out into the woods, and you can put your bare feet onto the ground and you can enjoy nature. You can get outside at night. You can go camping. You can look up at the skies, watch the stars, look for UFOs. You can get out there where it's dark, maybe go to Sedona, maybe go out in the desert somewhere. You may not find Bigfoot. You may not spot a UFO. You may not find the Ark of the Covenant. But one thing you might do out there is find something even more important.
You might find yourself.
You might find yourself out there. You got that right, Lyn. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate all of you. Thank you so much, CJ.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
All Things Unexplained.
What's your hot take on Travis Taylor?
I've got an exclusive for you guys if you want it about the Alaska.
We do.
Okay.
Dr. Taylor was revealed to be the chief scientist of the UAP task force with the Pentagon.
So some of that, I think, sir, will save for closed session.